There might not have been a better time to play the original Panzer Dragoon trilogy than today, being taken to the past to be again taken to a time beyond time, this double displacement being the first layer of estrangement. We are transported on two levels, to the time the games were made and to times in the games. And here we lose our ground. More specifically, we travel to the past to be then taken to the in-game future, with us in the middle. The influences of Nausicaa and Moebius's Arzak give us some clues and point us to its intertextuality with his work's ecological themes. A future without humans to which absence the planet is indifferent to. We connect with the dragon to destroy machines and get lost in nature's beauty in the process. More than ecology as the term we know today, the game seems to try to portray some sort of future where humanity has no more possibility of trying to dominate nature. To this effect, the games are very pretty and put us through a whole lot of very alien landscapes, but it's probably the third game, Saga, the one that embraces more the feeling of a lone human and their dragon in a vast world where humans have mostly disappeared. Circling back to the ecological themes, making the player feel the insignificance of their avatar in the game world, with huge open areas with ruins from millennia ago. Both these scales contribute very effectively to this theme, but the first two games have their fair share of magical, vast backgrounds. Not only the scale, but some of the ways we are allowed to interact with the game world make us feel more in the observer's seat of Panzer Dragoon's world rather than a contributor in any capacity. Many times exploration is rewarded with the world telling us its story rather than any sort of relevant progression of its systems. Very telling of this that we get almost no items from searching inside other characters' houses like it's common in RPGs, but we still get to inspect their belongings, the objects that tell their stories besides themselves. This is also made evident in the way the game lets you inspect objects from afar and from up close, distinguishing what something might look like from a distance and its actual details. Again, we observe the world. That's not to say we aren't the key element in the game's progression and its eventual conclusion. We learn towards the end that we are critical for the future of what's left of humanity. But even in this extreme set of events, we feel the indifference of the course of history. Nonetheless, we feel deeply attracted to these landscapes and this world. There's certainly a sense of escapism, but maybe that's not all there is to it. After all, aren't we all curious to find out what has become of our world in 20,000 years? It's interesting tracing these themes and how each game mechanically explores them, as each game does things in slightly different ways, not mentioning Saga not even being a on-rails shooter anymore. Although Saga explores very effectively this sense of impotence in a big world that lives despite ourselves, the first two games develop the feeling better through their ambiguous and sparse storytelling. Saga tells us too many things, especially in the second half where it needs to justify having some sort of narrative on account of it being an RPG and the fact that it was made to compete with Final Fantasy VII. The first two games tell us just enough. Again, we aren't entitled to the truth in this era. Our time has gone by. We are just teased with some connections across the games, the dragon, the ancient civilization, the recovery of lost technology, and so on. We are guided by the dragon and not told much, and our insignificance is made clear. In Saga, on the other hand, not only we're presented with twists, a bunch of characters, and even some character development, there's also an extra care put into having a lot of cinematic storytelling through in-game cutscenes and pre-rendered cutscenes. It's worth noting that this push is very obvious not only in the total runtime of cutscenes but also having full voice acting on virtually all conversations, and that's why it ended up being an 18-hour game spanning 4 CDs. It's clear that as time went by, the scale of production and general ambition to achieve more and bigger things grew with the series, but it didn't necessarily benefit them in all fronts. The tension between these elements makes each game interesting in its own way of trying to portray this feeling, but there's another element contributing to this tension that I have some trouble fitting in this reading, and that's the gameplay. Across the three games, even though the third one is an RPG, gameplay is made to look snappy, impressive, and a spectacle. Except for the first game, which places some level of difficulty for having to complete it in one sitting, combat does not give the player much trouble and is more worried about looking good. And it does. Still hard to find a place for it in this theme and still kind of exists in tension. I managed to beat Saga without any game over, which kinda seems in contradiction with feeling the impotence in front of a vast world. The human and dragon relationship is still kind of one of domination of the first towards the other, but in here the game explores a few things to balance it. In Saga particularly, you can interact with the dragon when you're camping, although you get rewards for these interactions. You can also name it, which is a detail that tries to contribute to this, although it's debatable if naming something isn't exerting domination over it as well. Another fact contributing to this is that we find out dragons were created by humans too. But here there is another reading we can extract. The dragon is central to the game. Without the dragon we would be nothing. It's almost exclusively through the dragon that we are able to meaningfully act upon the game world, be it combat or most traversal in Saga. Again, we see our own insignificance reflected. In the first game, the human avatar partners with the dragon by mere chance after the original rider dies. There's nothing quite on this level of coincidence in the next two games, but a human is always portrayed as an ordinary person who just happens to stumble upon a war machine. The role of the dragon and of the human gets some interesting layers through meta-narrative. In the original game, the dragon only exists as far as the player, us, interacts with the game. The finding of the dragon immediately triggers the events of the game, and the dragon also leaves right after the final battle. All the missions of the game appearing to take place one right after the other in a relatively short amount of time, just as the player is expected to play the whole game in one short sitting, without the possibility of saving, again tracing a parallel between our interaction with the game and the appearance of the dragon. This meta-narrative trick is also explored in the third game. We are asked to say our name to an unknown entity before the game starts, only to find out that we're some kind of metaphysical entity, either inside or controlling Edge, the main human character. Here the game goes a step further and makes it more interesting. The ending asks if we, the player, the divine visitor, want to end it all by just pushing the button, or by omission if we want to let the ancient technology in charge of controlling the human population keep doing it, by just doing nothing. The screen then turns black for something like 30 seconds. If we don't do anything, the ending cutscenes keep playing. It's not entirely clear to me why we're thanked if we choose to do nothing, and there might be some overlook from my part. On the other hand, there's a couple interesting things worth noting. As the player, we can symbolically end the technologically advanced ancient ages domination over the current one. Again, we find the ecological themes resonating. Second thing is that we as players give up watching the unfolding of the ending to achieve this symbolic conclusion. And the themes come back to meet us. Just because we can do something, in this case know what happens after the ending, doesn't mean we should. Contradicting its own attempt to force a narrative development, the game asks us to sacrifice our fixation on knowing every detail of a story, in order to symbolically transform the world into something new. In order to create something, we must destroy the myth of getting to know how a story ends.